the tradition of the chapel to remain standing for the reading of Scripture, a tradition I have stepped all over for about 3 weeks, and I apologize. It is a beautiful tradition, and I'm glad to have you standing for the hearing of Matthew's Gospel. I'm reading from chapter 18, beginning in verse 15. Jesus says, "If another member of the church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. If the member listens to you, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you, if two of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them." Then Peter came and said to him, "Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times?" Jesus said to him, "Not 7 times, but I tell you 77 times. Thanks be to God. By way of continued introduction, I think I mentioned a few weeks ago that my family home is in Greenwood, South Carolina. But the summer before my 4th grade year, my family moved to Doraville, suburb of Atlanta, and I did all of my growing up from 4th grade on there. We joined a little church in our neighborhood right after we lived there, but when I was 15, we moved to First Baptist Doraville, across from the MARTA station, if you know where that is. That's where Melissa and I met. She'd been in that church her whole life. Small, little, mostly blue-collar church, folks attached to the General Motors plant there, and a wonderful, formative group. But back in those days, in my high school days, we still had Sunday night church. And for those of you who didn't grow up Baptist, I'm going to throw some terms at you might not have heard before. Before the 5 o'clock worship service, at 4 o'clock, we had RAs. That's Royal Ambassadors. Some people are nodding. Or GAs, which was Girls in Action. Or if you were a youth, you went to youth group, and the adults went to training union. Some of you can translate for the others after the service. But the Sunday night service was not well attended. It was not at all planned. We didn't have an order of service. The music director would ask what you wanted to hear, and somebody'd say, "Standing on the promises." Fine, okay. The sermon was usually like 3 points on an index card jotted down after the Sunday nap. It was really, really casual. Before we got there, though, there was a tradition about the way that service would close. I don't know how this tradition started, but as we got to the last verse of the last hymn, folks would close their hymnals and start gathering around in a circle and take hands with others, and the whole church would gather, and we would look at each other as Joy on the piano moved from playing the last hymn to playing "Blessed Be the Tie That Binds." And we'd look into each other's faces and sing, "The fellowship of kindred minds is like to that above." And I'm 15, 16, 17. That's a centering kind of place for me, warm and meaningful. But much later, I came to find out that that song was more hope than reality. Some of those people in that circle were trying to run the preacher off, and some of them were trying to defend him. And one guy in that circle owed another guy in that circle some money, and they hadn't spoken in about 3 years. And there were 2 women in that circle who absolutely despised each other, and I don't know what that was about. I don't know the story behind that at all. But what any longtime church member knows, and what the author of the Gospel of Matthew knows, is that Christian community is hard. For 4 weeks, we're looking at the core values of every church that's trying to get it right. And 2 weeks ago, we talked about worship, the value that all of the rest of it springs from for us. And last week, discipleship. And today, we're looking at our commitment to community. And we're not going to romanticize community and pretend that it is primarily about holding hands and singing together. As I said, reading from the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says it straight up. If another member of the church sins against you, go point out the fault when the 2 of you are alone. Jesus is assuming that those of us who do church together are going to step on each other from time to time. It's just built into the fabric. Years ago, Scott Peck wrote a book where he outlined the stages of community formation. Here were the stages he identified. The first stage, he said, is pseudo-community. It's that checking with each other after church and how was your weekend? Y'all have a good trip? But there's nothing really, just pseudo-community. But he said the second stage is chaos. And chaos is the clash that happens when we discover our differences and then try to convert and convince or fix or solve. But the difference is the thing that matters most. And we just swat at each other because it's us against them and those who are right and those who are wrong. And if you're not on my side, you're not only wrong, you're probably evil. Next, he said, is emptiness. I tried to convert and convince. She's never going to learn. That's how those people are, you know. He's never going to change. I don't need them anyway. Empty. But Peck says that if we stay at it, we might just get to real community. And community, he says, is a place where we give up on convincing, forcing, converting, berating, and allow people into our lives who are not like us and never will be. And we keep laughing and loving and stumbling and infuriating and hurting and forgiving, and eventually something strong and beautiful gets born. Listen to his little description of community and tell me if this isn't the hope we have for our chapel. But what repeatedly draws me into community is something more than joy. When I'm with a group of human beings committed to hanging in there through both the agony and the joy of community, I have a dim sense that I am participating in a phenomenon for which there is only one word. I almost hesitate to use it. The word is glory. Jesus says, if another member of the church sins against you, go point out the fault when the 2 of you are alone. If that member listens, then you've regained. If a relationship isn't repaired, take somebody else in the church with you. But keep at it. Keep at it. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am also. Keep at it. keep at it. Now, there may come a time, as it says in the text, that but try, keep at it. Because at the end, the word for genuine community is glory. And then Peter asks the most honest of all questions. It's the most human question there is. He says, okay, Lord, if a member of the church sins against me, how many times should I forgive them? 7 times? I mean, come on. And this is why true community is hardly anywhere to be found. Because most people are not willing to do the hard work past the chaos and the emptiness. If we encounter people who are not like us, we just move on. There must be a gaggle of folks somewhere who think like I think. There must be some church somewhere who votes like I vote. Keep moving. Community is hard. For most people, the answer to the question, how many times should I forgive somebody who has done me wrong? The answer is 0. Be done with them. Other fish in the sea, that's just the way she is. He's never going to change. Now this part, if we're honest, this part can be infuriating. Have you noticed that in the Jesus way, the wrongdoer gets all the breaks? Apparently, they get to dump all over me, and it's my job to keep forgiving them. Who does this? In the Jesus way, the burden falls on me to forgive and restore. What happened to getting even? I mean, the Jesus way is just so upside down. All of this is about restoring the person who has done the harm. They did me wrong. What about me? What about my rights? Community is hard. And have you noticed that the people closest to you are the only people who really have the power to hurt you? Britney Spears can't hurt my feelings. I don't know. What do I care? But my kids can break my heart because I love them. And so one way people keep from getting hurt is to keep everybody just a little bit away, out there, arm's distance. I'll just sit by myself in church. I won't let you get to know me. I won't ask questions to get to know you. That way I won't end up disappointing you. You won't end up disappointing me. I just come for the music anyway. Reminds me of the Simon and Garfunkel song where they said, I am a rock, I am an island. Rocks feel no pain and islands never cry. Only it's sung with so much sadness. Living lonely is a painful way to live. And isolation from community is not the abundant life of the gospel promise. And moving on to find a more suitable spouse, a better group of friends, a more perfect church, packing up the suitcase at every hurt or heartbreak in search of a better group of people. And eventually we will push ourselves into a corner all alone, unhurt, but unloved. Community is a two-way street. It involves allowing people to be peculiar and ornery without needing to change them. It involves accepting people on the far right and the far left. It means loving beyond labels and categories. It means risking our true selves. It doesn't happen when we just present our persona, our Sunday best, our outside presentation to each other. Community happens when we slowly and appropriately reveal more and more of our authentic self, and we still feel safe and loved. And that is where joy lives. And that, for me, is the chapel hope. You know, we often use language about church family, right? She's part of my church family. And that really might be the right metaphor. Because healthy family is the place where you are most known, where you are most hurt, where you disappoint each other the most, and where you're the most committed to sticking it out anyway. Now, I do have one caveat here. There are people who are so toxic and so damaging to the health of a family or a congregation that parting ways is the right and healthy thing to do. There are dangerous exceptions to this rule, but Jesus is talking here about people who are regularly messed up, like us, right? This is not about staying in abusive or toxic relationships. So Peter comes to Jesus and says, Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times? And Jesus said, not 7 times, I tell you, 77 times. There's no surprise in this. In my few weeks here with you at Big Canoe Chapel, I have come to learn that this group is like, well, every other faith community I've served. It's a perfectly imperfect group of people who are just all saved by the gift of God's grace. And we will end up disagreeing about stuff. We'll end up stepping on each other from time to time. We'll argue about where to put our missions money. We'll vote for different candidates. And we'll keep trying to love. Because what we do here is kingdom practice. And the great banquet table is going to be filled with a lot of people not like us, and a few people we're going to really be surprised to see there. Church community is where we practice treating each other like the hurting messes we are, but also like people who are made in the very image of God, and forgiving and loving in the Jesus way. Now, we'll tell a true story, but I have to change it a little bit because in its original form, the language would not let us keep our made-for-TV rating. So I was in church. John and I were both in our 30s when this time happened. And I don't know what was going on in his life at the time, and I don't remember what he was frustrated about, aggravated about. But he said this with some bite to it. He said, I don't want or need any more buddies. I have plenty of buddies. I have buddies I wave to in my yard when I'm out doing yard work. I have buddies at work. I have buddies at my country club. I have buddies at my kids' ball games. I have enough buddies to last me a lifetime. And I don't need to come to church to meet some more buddies. Then here's the edited part. He said, at church, I need to find one group of people who actually give a Tweedledum. He was telling me that his soul aches for community, that he needs a place to be known and loved anyway, that he needs a place that will hold his hurt and a place where he can take his turn holding somebody else's hurt. He needs a place that'll buy balloons and celebrate the birth of his child. He needs a place that actively invites others in because community gets richer as it adds more perspectives and stories. He needs a place where he can safely grow into the person God has created him to be, knowing that they will forgive him 77 times if need be as he makes his way. If we say that community is a core value around this place, then we say we are committing ourselves to all of the hard work and messiness that goes with it. And if you need a place like that in your life, a place where you can try to reach to be a more authentic person and be loved anyway, and do life with a group of people who actually do give a tweedledum, then we'll be better and stronger if you join your life with ours. And we'll get to walk the road home together in community and not alone. This multi-denominational group is not united by denomination or ideology. We are united by the grace of this table. This table is a symbol of power that's born in brokenness. And we come to it, all Christians invited, to reflect on our brokenness and need for a Savior, to reflect on the actions we might take to building a better, truer, more Christ-like community. And we come to the table in gratitude because this is where true life is found. Would you join me in the responsive reading? The Lord be with you. We lift up our hearts. Let us give thanks to the Lord our God. All honor and praise and glory be to God. The Lord's name be praised forever. And so with your people